Welcome to Scaling Digital Innovation, today's session of the Rutgers Business School Signature Leadership Series. Today's webinar is offered in valued partnership with Tech United NJ, and we thank them for their support. The Rutgers Business School Signature Leadership Series is a relatively new learning opportunity that brings our audience lessons of resilience, resourcefulness, responsibility, and reinvention through conversations with thought leaders and business leaders from across industry spectrums. It's now my pleasure to introduce your moderator. Rich Hoynes is a graduate of Rutgers College with a degree in computer science and currently serves on the board of advisors for the Rutgers Business School. He is also a graduate of the Harvard Business School Advanced Management Program. He has an impressive background in information technology and joins us today with more than 30 years of senior executive and technology experience as a former CIO with Pfizer Consumer Healthcare, CIO for Warner Lambert Consumer Healthcare, CTO at Tyco International, and Vice President of IT at Johnson & Johnson. He's held various senior IT leadership roles with Anchor Savings Bank and National Westminster Bank and IBM. And he's consulted across various industries and companies. And we just adore Rich Hoynes and appreciate you serving as our webinar moderator today. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Margaret. I guess I'm on now. Great. Good morning, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Margaret. I'd also like to add a thank you to Dean Lay for inviting us to participate and share some perspectives on digital innovation here at Rutgers. And also my dear friend, Peter Method, who actually extended the invite to have me come do this with Nick, who I know you will thoroughly enjoy. Before we jump into the interview, audience members are welcome to post questions in the chat room. I have actually two screens open here, so I'm going to try to keep my eye on those questions as we go. If I don't get them throughout the session, at the end, if we have some time, we'll get to them in the end, and we'll attempt to answer those. So I'll open it up for questions at the end also in case we have a little extra time. It is my distinct pleasure, and I've had a great time getting to know Nick in preparation for this session, but to welcome Nick Colisto, the CIO of Avery Dennison. He joins us today as an accomplished visionary global leader and published author with a wealth of experience in digital transformation and the execution of digital strategies, which he's going to talk with us about today. Prior to joining Avery Dennison, Nick served as a senior vice president and CIO for leading global water technology company Xylem, which many of you may know. He also worked and held senior IT roles with Hovnanian Company, one of the U.S. largest home builders. And near and dear to my heart, the pharmaceutical industry, Nick also worked for Boehringer-Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals, a global research-driven pharmaceutical company. Nick is a recipient of many prestigious awards, including the CIO Hall of Fame, the CIO 100, Computer World's Premier 100 IT Leaders, Information Week's Top Innovators, and InfoWorld 100 and Top 15 Green Award he received. So, Nick, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you to our session today in Scaling Digital Innovation. I hope everyone will get something great out of it. I am going to take us through a series of questions, Nick. I'm going to start with a little bit about your background. I'm going to talk about how you engage on digital innovation, the structure of your organization. We're going to talk about talent. I'm going to ask you a little bit about your advice for the students and the people that are attending here, and also ask you about opportunities at Avery Dennison for those that might be interested once they get to know how wonderful you are in coming to work for you. So if you're good with that, why don't we get started?
Sounds great. It's a pleasure to be here, Rich. Thank you for conducting the session. Really appreciate that. So look forward to engaging the audience as well.
It is my pleasure. To begin with, Nick, would you mind sharing a little bit about your background with the audience, why you chose information technology as a field, a little bit about your company, Avery Dennison, and how you came to join them?
Yeah, so going back in time a bit, I think would be interesting. So, so why did I choose IT in the first place? What made me do this, right? So I think back to my first year in college, I actually majored in accounting, and I found it to be interesting, the accounting work, but a bit repetitive and mundane at times. And so after my first year of classes, I took an elective class in basic programming, the language of BASIC. And I had this revelation during that course. I said, well, there must be a way to automate some of these accounting tasks, because I was tired of doing all these little spreadsheets. And then once I took that first class, which I was just hooked on it, I just really enjoyed. I found I'm pretty good at programming. Hey, this is something I can run with. And I started taking more and more languages. I switched majors, and I took every class I can take on program. I don't remember any of those classes now, but I took every class I could take on programming. And my interest at the time was, how do I use information technology to solve accounting? That was my focus at the time. And that was one of the 3 building blocks of my career. And then I was fortunate enough at the time, Rich, to land 2 really good internships while in college. One at Money Financial Services, and then another one at AT&T, and both were in programming. And it really focused on the accounting departments. So it gave me a deeper appreciation of the power of technology to automate these accounting routine tasks. However, the funny thing is that when I graduated with my bachelor's in MIS, I took a job at Bayer Corporation, another big pharma, which is near and dear to your heart, as a systems analyst. I was a systems analyst. And so I graduated, became a systems analyst at Bayer, and never programmed ever again. I was like, how did this happen? I took all these classes. And so, but the experience heavily influenced my interest in using IT to solve problems beyond accounting for all the functions at Bayer that I was able to support. And that was the second building block of my career. And then the third building block of my career it really shaped my career was, in IT, was related to being very fortunate to have worked in 5 different industries. You mentioned a couple before: consumer packaged goods, home building, which I really enjoyed as well, for Hovnanian, which is your neck of the woods there, where the headquarters is in New Jersey, industrial manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and software. And I really think it's this diversity. What I think was really unique here for me is, at least, this diversity across and experiences across 5 different industries has given me this sort of fresh, inventive, unique perspective on delivering technology-enabled solutions in a variety of markets and a variety of companies at different times, acquisition mode, downturns. Home building went through lots of challenges while I was there, unfortunately, during the downturn of the economy. I've held the title of CIO in 4 of these different industries, so 4 of the 5. So just fast forwarding now, just to kind of close on that piece, is 3 years ago, I was contacted by an executive recruiter. I was working at Xylem at the time for the CIO role at Avery Dennison. And Avery Dennison is a $7 billion global material sciences and manufacturing company. And we have over 30,000 employees around the world, 50 countries. And then after interviewing with the executive team, Rich, I just thought it was a great match because of their interest in digital innovation. Had a huge interest in that. And I haven't looked back twice. So since, I should say so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that background. And you live in Southern California.
Yeah, I live in Southern California with my wife, Joanne. We've been married 31 years this December. I have 2 adult children in New York City. They live in New York City, and I was just there a few weeks ago visiting them. So, yeah.
Perfect. And you're an athlete.
I'm an athlete. Well, I'm a runner. I like to run. In fact, after this call, I'm going to run because I've been going since. So one of the issues of living in LA is you have to get up super early. It's like the worst time zone to work in a global company, right? So we get up at 5:30 every morning. You have to get Asia and Europe, So I run usually like now. I'll run after this.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm hitting you with some questions we didn't rehearse, so that's okay. This is good.
That's okay. That's fine.
So can we shift and talk a little bit about your IT function and the organization? So a little bit about the organizational structure, and if you wouldn't mind sharing with us how you deliver value to the business, what's your engagement model, and how you approach digital innovation at Avery.
Okay, so I'll talk about the structure first. I mean, just the organizational model is I'd say modern, nothing unusual. My direct reports, if you do this a couple of times, you kind of know what works for you. And as a CIO, you've been a CIO, you kind of know what works, and you kind of adjust and tune for the times. But it's pretty much the same model. My direct reports are the head of the program management office, and she also has sourcing and strategy. We have an individual running infrastructure services. I have an IT risk and cybersecurity organization. Architecture is also centralized. And then I have application teams focused on each of our major major businesses, and within the businesses, we've got, each of the functions: commercial, finance, R&D, manufacturing. So we have heads of those individual functional areas. We have IT partners that are assigned to each of our BUs for relationship management, strategic planning, and prioritization. We outsource quite a bit. I mean, I said modern, so modern companies these days are outsourcing. We outsource a lot of development, software development, maintenance and support for our data center, network, our service desk and applications. We have over 450 employees in IT across 50 countries. We have centers of excellence in California, Ohio, Netherlands, and Hong Kong, and also India. India is a big site for us now. We have a captive in India, but we also do a lot of outsourcing to two big companies in India as well. We have 205 connected sites. We just bought a company called Vestcom in September. That brings us another 100 plus IT practitioners to the table, and really excited about. I just spoke with that team yesterday, the IT team, and just welcome them to the organization. 26% of our staff is in the U.S., but after that, it gets pretty dispersed around the world. And I'd say the last thing I say on the organizational model, really importantly, is 20% of our global IT workforce is made up of women. So we have it's about average to the industry, but I want to beat that average. And then we have a U.S. workforce. 42% of it is ethnically diverse. So that's the model itself. You asked about, I think you said, innovation as well.
Yeah. How do you then take that model and approach digital innovation?
No, that's a good question. Thank you for that. Yeah. So let me give you some context about how we define maybe digital innovation and becoming a digital business, because it means so many things to different people and different companies. So I always like to start with that, right? So becoming digital, it's about having the ability and desire to exploit both existing technology as well as emerging technology. And I add that in there because it's not always about having to use the latest and greatest technology. It could be that you've got some really good technology in place that's been effective for many, many years, and that's how you solve a problem, right? Doesn't matter. And it's really about solving for better business outcomes. And Avery Dennison, we have the ambition to use digital technologies to both optimize and transform our business, right? So optimization is all about, it's a journey that's about improving existing business models that we have through things like productivity, revenue generation of existing products and services. Think of e-commerce, right? As an example, the customer experience. How do you raise up the NPS through digital? And employee engagement too. Employee engagement is also about optimization, and then transformation is how do you it's a journey. It's about creating new net revenue streams for new products and services. And then back in 2018, I joined in February, but that same year I formed the Digital Innovation Center of Excellence after I did my listening tour, or DICE. It's also, the acronym is DICE. It's also an initialism, which makes it nice. And it was coined with the nod toward that innovation is a gamble, right? And you don't always win. And unfortunately, we have been winning with the help of DICE. It's been written up a couple articles out there. It was one of the contributing factors of us being named one of IDG's 2020 CIO 100 award recipients. Really proud of that. And DICE consists of 3 enabling programs. One is building digital fluency in our organization, right? And it's our learning program. That's the first leg of the stool. We provide education. In fact, just before this call, I was on with our next wave of cohorts of 25 leaders across the company. Some are IT practitioners, some are not. Most of them are not. I just announced that the DLAP, it's called Digital Leadership Acceleration Program. It's a 6-month class that these leaders will go through with a university program to teach them about digital technologies and practices like DevOps and design thinking. And they actually do projects and they report out their projects to the leadership team. Really exciting. So that's one method of learning. The other leg of the stool is the lab. And this is where we provide agile methodology, rich and resources to develop minimal viable products. We do a lot of experiments, proof of concepts with emerging technologies. And then the third leg of the stool and the final leg of the stool is how we approach innovation is links. It's the 3 L's: lab, learning, and links. You'll find that I have a lot of these type of things, abbreviations. Links is our outreach program to bring together entrepreneurs, customers, suppliers, universities, and consortiums to co-create and solve business problems, right? The goal is to innovate like a startup and scale like an enterprise. So that's how we approach digital innovation at Avery Dennison.
Wonderful. For anybody that's on the call, if you need someone to help you with acronyms, he's your guy.
I like the name.
As we go through these questions today, one of the things that I think is on a lot of people's minds, especially today with COVID, is how COVID impacts how we do business differently. So if I don't ask you directly on all the questions as we're going through, just you might want to highlight that for us. How has it affected you? But we'll get into that. But before we do that, how do you get your pipeline? You talked about the DICE Lab for innovation. How do you get your pipeline of ideas in the DICE Lab?
Yeah, and it's a good question. It's actually slightly different. We actually did a little differently during the COVID as well, which I'll explain. Yeah, so we have four digital we've got 4 digital experience domain leaders, right? So these are individuals that are covering the digital customer experience or CX, the factory experience, product experience, and then the employee experience. We have 4 separate leaders. They work together as part of the DICE team. They're in the lab. These are the folks that are in the lab, right? So these domain leaders will work with each of the business units to identify problems to be solved, and decide, whether we could use an emerging technology to solve it, like AI or ML, computer vision, or maybe it's something traditional, right? And during the pandemic, DICE developed and launched a digital ideation program called Innovate Now. So we named, again, I'm big on the naming. In fact, my first boss.
Good marketing.
Yeah, my first boss, Joanne Raimondo, I worked for 14 different managers over the course of my career. 7 of them were women. The first 3 were women, by the way. I would like to point that out because I really gain a lot of respect and appreciation for women leaders. That's why I'm really torn about why we don't see more women leaders today in IT. It just bothers bothers me a lot because when New York is coming out, sorry guys, when New York is coming out.
Yeah, no worries.
So it really bothers me because I recognize IT as being much more gender diverse than I see it today. It's very frustrating. But during the pandemic, we created this Innovate Now program, and the idea was to bring diverse groups of people together by business unit, by region, to identify the biggest pain points, such as how do we maintain customer intimacy while working remotely? How do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
How do we support shop floor workers with technical issues on the machines that we have, coding machines? We're a labels company, big coding machines that produce big rolls of label material. When they have problems like on these machines, how do you support them remotely? Because you can't go. So the first phase of Innovate Now generated over 400 viable ideas. We did this brainwriting technique. Some of your students, participants may be aware of it. Brainwriting techniques where you go into a room and you're very quiet in a room and you're trying to solve these problems together in a very quiet way. And you're putting in your answers into a model, and you're all contributing together at the same time, real time. It's pretty exciting to watch this. And with this portfolio, this reservoir of ideas, the team began to engage employees all around the organization to complete experiments on how to solve these kind of problems and to scale the ones that had the ability to generate the most value. We scale about 37% of the experiments we do. So that's a good sort of like pass fail, because you don't want to, if you're scaling 100% of all the experiments that you work on, Rich, it means that you're not taking enough risk.
Yeah.
So, this 60-40 split, I think is pretty healthy.
That's a good number.
Yeah. So that's how we're getting at it,
Yeah. We had the same thing at Pfizer, actually. You did exactly what you're doing there. So very, very interesting. Have you got a few, could you share out of that number that you select, could you share a few success stories with us? Would you mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I'll talk about the ones I just was using as an example there. One example. So I'll give one example on optimization. I was talking about optimization versus transformation. And by the way, it wasn't Nick Colisto that came up with these definitions around frame. It's really a Gartner group sort of frame. And I just did it from years ago, and I just stuck with it. It worked. But so let's talk about providing virtual assistance to shop floor workers. We had a great experiment on this, conducting physical factory inspections and providing assistance to shop floor workers during the pandemic was a significant challenge, given the travel restrictions that we had, the social distancing that we had, the workplace safety. So in response, we initiated a proof of concept. You might hear me say proof of concept or experiment. They're actually different. For us, a proof of concept may take 2 or 3 sprints, may go on for maybe a month or more, where an
Yep.
experiment is, I want to see an experiment in a week, no more than a week to do an experiment. And so we did a proof of concept, because this is a heavier one, to leverage wearable computing and augmented reality technologies by a company called TeamViewer. And it was designed to help our workers see all the relevant work instructions, take pictures, so they had wearables, take pictures, conduct bi-directional video calls to immediately connect with experts, either one-on-one or group calls, to give them live augmented reality annotations as well, right? So it was really interesting. And from a sales lead, that's optimization. We didn't make any new revenue from that. That was optimizing the environment, protecting our workers, and giving them assistance. On a transformation perspective, one of the success stories originates from Dice. As an experiment is called Atma.io, and if you go onto our website, you'll see Atma.io. I think it's the term is born from India. The soul. It's like the soul, right? Atma. And the company has created this connected product cloud platform, and it gives a unique serialized digital ID to physical labels for the end-to-end. So think about a label that goes on a package of food, a label that goes on to perhaps a very expensive piece of apparel, right? From a very fancy, maybe a brand that you might be buying a purse from, as an example.
Sure.
I don't say our brand customers' names. And so we provide end-to-end tracking from the source to the customer and beyond, also to take advantage of the circular economy as well. So I'll give you an example. I can say one example, because we have it on our website. It's from Adidas. Or Adidas, as it's called. It's an integrated Atmos. We use the Atmos connected cloud platform for their program they call Infinite Play. That's an Adidas thing, Infinite Play, which helps Adidas scale their ability to buy back. Who would have thought, right? They buy back products from their customers and give those products a second life, right? That's and they do that with Atmos as an example.
And how do they do that? What do they do with those products?
They sell them back. They buy them. So it creates a marketplace. Who knew? My son, who's in his mid-20s now, his closet full of sneakers. He loves sneakers. And if you walk, you'll see some shops out there where there's sneakers wrapped in. I'm sure these participants are more aware than I am. You walk into these stores. We have a store here in Valencia, California, where they have these sneakers wrapped in plastic. And I'm walking by and I'm seeing these sneakers wrapped in plastic in the window. And these are really expensive sneakers that they're reselling. So there's money.
Hopefully they clean them before they resell them.
I don't know.
Yeah. So real interesting. So you take out of the 37% of the ideas, you create these pilots, you do those operations. So how do you then take the pilot and scale that? There's a difference between piloting and scaling, and what have you learned from that process? And also, if you could talk a little bit about, has this changed in COVID? Has COVID impacted this in any way? Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, because COVID has a lot of impact, right? I'd say, while many organizations have formal innovation programs in place for many years, scaling successful experiments the experiment can be very successful, but scaling them to fully commercialized or operational solutions is a real challenge for technology leaders and their business partners that they have. So through the help of industry advisory firms such as Gartner and our own experiences with Dice, we have learned many lessons, on how to scale digital innovation. We're still not perfect at this, of course. We're still making mistakes and we're learning, but we've identified I can think of at least 3 barriers or categories of failure or barriers, I should say. One is vision and strategy barriers. The other one is process and skill set barriers. And the third one I could think of is really an important one, cultural barriers. So let me just talk about each one very quickly. In terms of vision and strategy barriers, if a company doesn't define its digital ambition, it'll be incredibly difficult to get the funding necessary to scale experiments. So my advice to other IT leaders is, before you go off and start conducting a bunch of experiments with fancy technology, help your company define its digital ambition. and CIOs and their leadership teams can help facilitate this discussion and this process by conducting digital ambition workshops. This is very different from digital ideation workshops or brainwriting. This is helping to define what is your ambition? What are you trying to be in the next 5, 10 years? Go out 10 years. How does the revenue, what does revenue in 10 years look like, right? How does that, is it subscription-based models, or are you still selling a lot of hard physical products? And there are workshops that are designed to run this type of process. Gartner has some really good examples how to do that. And you do that with really long-term goals in mind, right? So that, and as it's really input into the strategic plan for each of the business units you work with in divisions. As part of the workshops, IT leaders can help other leaders defines what it means to become a digital business. And they can do by reviewing case studies, conducting exercises in the workshop. You can define how digital impacts the business model. So it's a very provocative process of imagining a future where every physical item, in our case, will have a unique digital identity. So that was the ambition we had as part of our workshops, right? The second category of a barrier is lack of processes and skill sets, right? So as part of DICE, we established the lab and created this 4-step innovation methodology: discover, plan, prototype, and scale. And it uses design thinking, it uses agile principles, it uses minimal viable product or minimal lovable product kind of concept, DevOps, brought people together from different areas of IT to solve real business problems with disruptive technologies and to accelerate our business. And that's, so you have to have a process in place, right? But you just can't, okay, you have all these ideas and then you just kind of fumble with on executing. And the third and final barrier I can think of that come to mind, and there's more barriers, but this is the kind of major ones, is culture. And people talk about culture a lot. So digital business is about transforming how companies engage with customers, approach and work with partners, use analytics in decision making, even fundamentally change how the workplace, think about COVID, is designed and how it's led. So what's preventing companies from accelerating with their digital ambition? The answer is culture as being probably the single biggest barrier to scaling digital solutions. So I think leaders of digital programs have a great opportunity to make their organizations more agile, more innovative, and more open to taking risks. And they can do that by helping to change the workplace culture, by being more open to learning, being an advocate for change, right? Taking it personally, and then taking risks and learning from failure. So those are some of the barriers I can think of that come to mind, and what we learn from.
Yeah, I think we're all right on, and I think your culture question is a great one. And I've been through a lot of mergers and acquisitions and divestitures, and the cultural differences among the companies definitely have an impact on success of both the integration of teams and how people engage. Right. Some cultures are more autocratic and command and control. Some cultures are empowering and some are not. How would you describe the Avery Dennison culture?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring this up. We just had I had a staff, we had a leadership summit, IT leadership summit, virtual again. Unfortunately, we do this every year, but we had to do it virtual again. And we brought together our IT leaders from around the world on a virtual setting, and we talked about culture quite a bit. And there's a technology that we use. It's available. It's not ours. It's called the Country Navigator. Country Navigator. So you go in there, Rich. It's really interesting. You go in there. You'd love this, and you answer questions about your own personality. Okay. Yeah. It compares your personality to wherever you are, the U.S. And then it compares you being you to the U.S. and then you in the U.S. to other countries that you want to compare to. So I do a lot of business with folks it's pretty interesting, right? Yeah. So I do a lot of business with people in Netherlands, right? With a lot of colleagues in Netherlands. It's a big hub for me. I'm flying to Amsterdam. It's about 45 minutes out of Amsterdam, our building. And then I also do a lot of business in also obviously US, but Hong Kong is the other side of ours. So I was very curious about sort of the styles, like how is my style when I work with somebody in Asia versus when I work with somebody in Europe and all that. And I'm pretty much, which you probably can glean from this call, I've got that in New York, even though I live in LA, I lived in New York all my life.
I see nothing wrong with.
Nothing wrong with that. Right? Come on. I grew up young. I'm a Yonkers boy, right?
Yeah. And direct.
And I'm direct, so I'm very direct. I'm very
Yeah.
direct. I'm working on some of that because like if I text you in the morning, I might not say, hey, good morning, Rich. How you doing today?
Yeah.
If you have a few minutes, it'll be like, hey, Rich, I need this.
Yeah.
Rich, I need this, right? And that doesn't always work. And you might do the same thing to me, right? But like,
Yeah.
if I do that with folks in other countries like Europe or Asia, you got to start a little differently. Folks in Netherlands,
Yeah.
by the way, if anyone on this call is from Netherlands, they're very direct too. They're very direct
Yeah.
too. Actually, funny about Netherlands is that if you lived in the Netherlands, if they don't like the sandwich feedback, they don't understand why we in the U.S. will say this. Hey, Rich, I think you do a good job on X, Y, and Z. Here's an area of improvement opportunity over here, but you do a fantastic job also with K and L.
Right.
So I just sandwiched it, right?
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, you do that. I do it all the time.
100%. Just to make people comfortable. Right.
Yeah, and I hope I'm not disparaging the Netherlands culture, but there, which I read so you can read about it, is they don't sandwich, they go right to it. So they're direct too.
Yeah. We're trying not to offend anyone. Yeah.
They go right. You go right to it. So you have to. So for us, it's all about knowing your audience is very important. When you're in corporate America, some of the participants on this call are either still in university, and some of them have graduated and are working in the professional industry, and they know it even better than I do. You have to know your audience and try to work with that. But it takes time. It does take time. When I worked in domestic companies, it was a heck of a lot easier. Heck of a lot. When I come from Hovnanian, oh God, it was so much easier because it's all US.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I've been through some cultural training. I think I'd like to try that system that you talked about though, and answer those questions if you don't mind. If you could hook me up after the session, I'd like to see how I engage internationally. I'm semi-retired now, so I'm planning a trip to Italy to see some of my ancestors and England and Scotland and all, because I'm a mutt from Jersey. You also talked about the skill sets that you were having, your success is dependent upon certain skill sets. So let's talk a little bit about talent. What are some of the skill sets that as a board member on the Rutgers Business School, one of the things we're very interested in supporting the curriculum is understanding what companies need from a student coming out of school. Because we're finding more and more that companies are saying, hey, I don't want to invest the money in an MBA for this person. We'll just train them on staff. We'll bring people in and put them through a class. So it'd be helpful to understand from you, like, what would you like to see from a college student coming out of school today, coming to Avery Dennison? What skill sets are you looking for? How do you attract and motivate? And why should they come work for you?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a great question. With respect to attracting diverse talent, we think that so there's a lot of dimensions to unpack with that question, right? So first of all, I think the most important acronym in IT is HR. It's the human resources of IT. That's what makes you successful, right? That's the most important acronym. So with respect to attracting diverse talent, we working with people who have very different backgrounds, as we were talking about, and experiences really enrich our culture, right? And makes our business even stronger. And to meet our goals behind, strong teams, we do a number of things. We create inclusive job descriptions. So we have and have a 50-50. So we make sure there's no bias in our job descriptions that comes across very masculine, as an example. Some job descriptions could read them and they're very masculine oriented. So we try to remove any of that. We have a 50-50 gender slate. So we don't begin hiring until we have 50-50 diverse slate with gender. And we also have diverse hiring panels too, to make sure that our hiring panels have a mix between gender diversity, but also other forms of diversity in terms of ethnicity. And then we have this, we really work to select the best qualified candidates, not only based on their core skills, but also interpersonal skills. So interpersonal skills is very important, that promote innovation and inclusion. So we're looking for people that are very collaborative, that are used to working in a matrix environment or want to work in a matrix environment, because we don't, it's not like you work as part of a business unit or a site, and it's all inclusive within that site. You are relying on many people to get your job done. Some people don't do well on that. They say they do well on that, and they don't do well on that.
100%.
It's so over the past 5 years, we've had a STEM Advantage program that has successfully guided and encouraged high-achieving, diverse students to pursue STEM careers, by providing paid internships, mentorships, and scholarships. So we have that. So that's about attracting employees and some of the things that we look for. I can get into some of the skill sets too in a minute, but
Yeah.
and then motivating and retaining employees. This is a focus area for us, and we continue to invest in making meaningful progress in retaining and motivating people. We have so I'm really proud of this. Since 2000, I joined in 2018. So I had to use 2017 as a baseline for our employee engagement score. So our employee engagement score in IT has risen year over year to this year of being 88%. So our employees have said that this is a great place to work. 88% of our employees have scored that as part of our employee engagement survey. We also, so it's pretty impressive, and every year it's gone up since then. In fact, this year we won Computer World's 100 Best Places to Work in IT award, which I'm really proud of.
Nice.
Yeah,
Real nice.
pretty cool. So one of my favorite awards, because it was the Computer World will come out and they'll actually interview your employees. They interview your employees. You fill out the essays and all that, and a lot of statistics on benefits and pay, all the compensation and all that, but then vacation, but then training, but then they interview them. So I think that's like really a testament to the company's performance. And our inclusion index of 90%, and demonstrating that Avery Dennison respects individuals and values all their differences, that employees are encouraged to express viewpoints, even if those viewpoints are different from others, and employees feel committed to improving diversity and inclusion for the organization. And so those are some of the components of helping to retain our employees and motivate them. We have a career framework where we're implementing common job descriptions across the organization. Just make sure that if you're a business analyst and you're working in Holland, it's the same role as working in Germany or working in India or Singapore. So just make sure that it's all in the same vein. And we have an IT academy. So if you come out of college and you're joining us, we have an IT academy for self-paced learning with curriculums to help you learn about the discipline of that role and more about Avery Dennison. So we're trying to become a distinctive developer of talent by investing in early career programs, expanding our IT academy, and then creating this informed, engaged, empowered workforce.
Very nice. We actually have a question on the same topic from Frank Scataro. I'll read you the question. You've covered some of it, but there are a couple of nuances in here that we might want to touch on. Frank says, you opened by discussing the experiences that shaped your career. For recent grads, what digital or other skills do you feel will be critical and attractive to companies over the next 5 to 10? And what IT/tech or other positions roles do you see the most growth in during that same time period? For example, what does your company look for in a candidate, especially in future leadership roles and positions?
Yeah, I'll talk.
Good
The
question.
soft part. Yeah, it's a good question. The soft part, absolutely. Looking for people that are collaborative. So I'll answer that part first. Collaborative, have good interpersonal skills, are used to or enjoy working as part of a matrixed organization. That don't feel like they have to do everything internally, and can rely on others and trust others to help them. Right, and it's really important for us. That's like number one for me. Is if I sniff out that somebody's not going to be collaborative, and they're going to try to go on their own like a lone wolf, it's not going to work. You won't get very far because we have if you try to buy something without engaging sourcing, it's a no-go. Right? You have to engage sourcing. Right? If you try to do a project without informing the project management office, it's not going to work. Right? And we're not trying to be draconian about it. It's just that we know when we put these processes in place, the PMO, the sourcing group, or Digital Innovation Center, it works. We perform. We are a high-performing IT organization, and it's all in the math. You see the metrics. I shared some metrics with you as well. It shows up, right? And people have a lot of empowerment in the business units, but they also have to rely on these shared services to get the work done as well. So it's just that it takes a certain person that want to work in that environment, right? So what do we look for? So I think that some of the top skills that are coming out. Data science is incredibly powerful right now. We've got 3 or 4 hubs of data science COEs around the world right now that we're investing in right now.
Mhm.
So AI analytics, super important for us.
Mhm.
Strong project management skills. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a skill. It's you think that, oh geez, PM project management is around, the discipline's been around for a very, very long time. Yeah, but finding people that are really good at this, it's not so
Yeah.
easy, right?
Mhm.
Especially when we work on global projects.
Right.
None of our projects are local. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you roll out a system like a pricing system in North America, chances
Yep.
are we're going to tap you to also roll it out in China. Maybe you may be part of that team,
Sure.
or help that team be successful,
Mhm.
right? So our projects are very, very global. Another area is cybersecurity. Oh my God, if you're graduating with cybersecurity, give me a call. I mean, that's just we have a wonderful, a fabulous cybersecurity team. We're always looking for more talent. We actually won the
Mhm.
CSO 50 award this year. My CISO and his team earned that award, so pretty excited about that.
Yep.
So that's another great skill. So some of the, I mean, anything Microsoft Azure. We are a
Mhm.
Microsoft Azure house,
Yep.
so if you have experience with that platform, very
Mhm.
important. Yeah, so I mean, there's no, we need everything. We're looking for everything, right? So networking
Yeah.
skills. We have a
Yeah.
lot of investments going in our network, so that's also, those groups aren't big groups, but they're very
Mhm.
important skills because we are, like I said, we have 205 connected sites. So that's keeping
Yeah.
all those sites up and running across our WAN, very, very
Mhm.
important. So
That's great. I'm actually coaching some Rutgers students and a couple of students from the Rutgers golf team, who are, by the way, unbelievable. These kids. I mean, I call them kids. They're young adults. Okay, I don't want to be patronizing, but they're not only. I mean, I have one student I'm coaching whose grade point average is 3.8 something, and she's phenomenal golfer and 30 hours a week golfing. I'm sitting there going, how do you get a cum of 3.8 while you're distracted with all this stuff? I mean, these kids are amazingly capable. So if students want to find their way to you, it would be great before we close up today. We're at 12:44, so we have about a little less, about 15 minutes left of conversation. But it'd be great to, how do people get a hold of you and some of these students if they want to do you do internships? Is there an opportunity there throughout
yeah,
the
absolutely.
year
So,
when they graduate?
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so visit our website and search for opportunities. All of our
Yeah.
opportunities are listed on our website. That and what would maybe be a good match with your qualifications and your interests. So also
Mm-hmm.
join the Avery Dennison Information Technology community
Yeah.
or other functional communities that you're interested in, and submit your resume so that you
Mm-hmm.
can be considered for current and maybe even possibly future opportunities if something is not available right this moment. Another
Yeah.
thing is, as things return to normal, Rich, I would really signal that attend industry events that Avery Dennison attends as well, so you can
Yeah.
network with our employees. Go to our booth. And right now
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit wonky because we don't have a lot of physical trade shows going on. But when
Yeah.
we do, if you're interested in this type of business, you
Yeah.
can meet us at a booth, share your thoughts and opinions. If you
Yeah.
are unable to meet in person, attend a webinar. You might be able
Yeah.
to ask thought-provoking questions and provide
Yeah.
feedback, that sort of thing. So yeah, networking and referrals. Avery Dennison social media, link in with our either follow me or follow Avery Dennison.
Yep.
So you see what's going on. I do a lot of, you'll see if you follow me,
Mm-hmm.
you'll notice that I speak about lots of topics with Avery Dennison. Some are not, most are not IT.
Yeah.
Just to promote the business
Yeah.
and so you'll learn a lot about the business by just following what
Yeah.
I'm sending out.
You're making me think, because I'm in the Rutgers Business School board meetings every quarter, and we're talking about, we're floating ideas. It might be nice to actually set up a virtual day for students to find out about Avery Dennison, where we bring a few of your key leaders and maybe some of the,
Sure.
lower level, maybe a couple of interns on a call like this, and spend 30 minutes just talking about Avery Dennison, what you do, what your passions are, what opportunities exist for students, and just build a bridge and maybe create some visibility at Rutgers for your company and them.
Yeah, in fact, And I would welcome that opportunity, and so I mentioned a couple of hubs before. I mentioned Ohio and California.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, in this day and age, I am very flexible about where people work, right? So
Yeah.
I'm probably on the cutting edge of that versus some of my peers.
Yeah.
I think my peers are starting to get comfortable with that, starting to think about
Yeah.
it. Pandemic. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it and maybe ask for permission later. I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission. So I just hired a person I used to work with at Hovnanian. She's based in New Jersey, and I hired her a few months ago. She runs our IT academy. Great
Oh,
hire.
wonderful.
And she's working out of her home, and she's a single mom, and
Yeah.
she didn't want to move to Los Angeles, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we're very open about where people live.
So if you're talented and you want to work from home, or you want to work in, any other place in the world where Avery Dennison is not, you're the guy to come work with, right?
That's right.
That's
give
right.
us a call.
And for those, now we have 43, we had up to 47 participants. So we're listening. He's a great guy who would be a great guy to work with. I think we've kind of reached close to the end of our questions at this point. So I'm going to open it up to the floor for people that might want to, for the last, let's see, it's 48. So the last 8 or 9 minutes, are there any questions from the audience that you'd like to post? And I'm looking at the Q&A, or you can post it in the chat, whatever is more comfortable for you.
While we're waiting for some of the people to type up their questions, one of the
Sure.
questions we receive pretty frequently is to ask about what our presenters are reading these days, or podcasts they're listening to, anything that's helping them kind of improve their headspace.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not as good with the author's name sometimes, but I can mention some books. But well, first of all, I listen to a lot of Patrick Lencioni, At the Table. I love Patrick. He's one of the authors of he's the author of The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and he's written many books since then. In fact, I think he's got something out called Working Genius, which is a really quite a good book. And then I also listen to Coaching for Leaders. It's a really interesting podcast, just teaching about leadership principles in a very easy, practical way, and I like that one a lot. I'm a subscriber to Blinkist. Blinkist is a executive book summaries. So as I run, I listen to Blinkist quite a bit. One of the books I've read recently was Think Again. I think it's Adam Grant, if I'm not mistaken. I read that one, and then the 3-minute rule, which is give any pitch within 3 minutes. Very interesting book. Yeah, it's quite good.
That's really great.
I do a lot of listening. I'm a big. I actually read a lot. I read a book every other week. I'm finishing a book. I can't seem to beat my daughter is way better at it than I am. But that's still quite a few books. She reads she could read like 100 books a year. My daughter. She's just an avid reader.
I actually signed up for Audible, so any topic that I have interested in, what I do when I'm going to sleep at night or when I'm just working around the house, I'll play the Audible on my Amazon Alexa.
Yeah, it's so good. So easy to consume that way, right?
Oh yeah, wonderful. So I'm looking for questions. Or do we have any? Let's see. Can you share a bit about your leadership style? How to motivate and push your team to be innovative? That's from a Phraseby.
Yeah, so a couple styles I have. One is I have a servant leadership style, right? So I'm here to make sure my people are success. I care deeply about the success of my team, right?
Yeah.
I'm big in succession planning and making sure they have the skills and the capacity to grow and learn. So that's an important mindset that you need to consider whether or not that's part of your style or not. Do you care deeply about your people and want them to succeed? So I do, and that's an important part of my style, right? That's one. So I have a transformational leadership style. It sounds like sort of like something you'd read in the magazine, but it's really about like, can you see ways of growing your business in a different way to create new net revenue streams, and how might you help them do that? And by having that sort of bend, you're making sure that digital shows up in strategic plans. You challenge strategic plans to make sure that there's digital business showing up. So it's that transformational sort of style of an interest in making sure you're growing the business. So those are two pieces. Situational leadership is really important as well. So if you're a very seasoned, very experienced person in IT working for me, and have worked in, I'm going to give you lots of room to run, right? Even though I'm a matrix model, you're going to run. If you're but if you're new and you just started, I'm going to
Mhm.
spend more time with you to make sure that you get
Of
up to
course.
speed and help you learn and grow. So that's situational, right?
That's a great leadership style, by the way, because you're meeting people where they are,
Right.
which is
Right.
great. And do you have any kind of mentoring program?
Not formally, so it's more informal, Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I've worked for Pepsi in different companies that have all these different formal programs like that. For us, it's more informal.
Yeah.
And if we do have successors to our leadership team, so we make in
Mhm.
our high potentials, we have high potentials
Yep.
that we categorize, and those are the individuals that we try to spend a disproportionate amount of time with, right,
Yeah.
to make sure that they learn and grow. So we have learning programs, not necessarily a mentor program.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. We're about 12:53, so we're getting close. On behalf of Dean Lay and Peter Method, I definitely want to thank you for participating in this session and people attending. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close and hand it over to Margaret?
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the program and just being able to, and I really enjoyed all the questions too. I really think that's it's good to have some interaction with the audience. And I will say I'll leave you with culture, right? I think again, cultural barriers is probably the single biggest barrier that you're gonna experience, and
Mm-hmm.
just think about how you can help create help your organization move from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture. Learning is really important.
Yeah.
Engaging is also very important. Making sure that you're having ideation sessions, engaging with your audience, thinking about ways to optimize and transform. Being
Mm-hmm.
being an advocate for making the cultural transition a personal priority, and then discover the needs of your stakeholders and the ultimate customers with a beginner's mind. That's really so
Mm-hmm.
important, right? To break down that culture.
Wonderful. Phraseby had a follow-up question before we run off. Do you think companies are now including CIOs in the company strategy formations and at the board level?
Oh, absolutely. We've listen. If you're worth your salt, right? You have
Yeah.
moved now from the back room to the boardroom. You
Yeah.
have a seat at that table. It's no
Mm-hmm.
question.
Yeah.
If you're working for a contemporary company that gets it right with digital,
Yeah.
because everything is digital, right? Everything
Mm-hmm.
the company does, you can't buy anything, sell anything, make anything without information technology. They call it digital now. Digital now. It's been digital since the 80s when I got into it. It was always zeros and ones, right? It's always been zeros and ones. We just happen to
Yeah.
put a nice moniker on it called digital, right? So
Yeah.
we have a seat at the table. We
Yep.
have we belly up to the table. The question is, Rich, right? What do we do with it? What do we
Yeah.
do with it? Do we sit there
Right.
passively listening, or are we
Yep.
engaging and challenging the status quo? That's the difference now. So none of this. Oh, we don't have a seat at the table anymore. No, we have it. Years ago, if you asked that same question, and thank you for that question,
Yeah.
that person asked. If you asked me years ago, I'd say, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring your own chair. I say that all the time. Bring your own chair. It's like, no. They go. You walk into the room. Here's your chair. Please come on in. Here's your chair. Help us.
Yeah.
Help us. And so some CIOs that haven't had enough experience don't know what to do with that chair, right?
Yeah.
So you get a chance, and you have to make that impression right away.
Yep. Yep. And when you go into your boss's office, do not walk in and drop problems on his desk. Walk in with, here's the situation. My first question always is, what do you recommend we do about it? Because I'm trying to build a team of empowered leaders. If you've
Right.
thought about it, if you've worked on it and you can't come up with the answer, tell me that when you walk in and ask me the question, and I'm happy to sit and work it out with you. But I
Great
want
advice.
people walking in with not problems. I got enough. I hired you because you're the best person for the job, and I'm looking for you to solve problems and drive change.
Great advice. Absolutely great
Yeah.
advice. Yeah. Come up with some solutions, some options. People like optionality. A lot
Yeah.
of leaders love optionality, right?
And give me the options with pros and cons. I want to know you thought about it. Right? Thought about it. Margaret, I think we're kind of at the end of our time. Are you okay wrapping it up?
I am. Thank you both so much. So informative and so interesting to hear. Thrilled to have both of you sharing experiences today. I know Rich touched on this, but I will thank you too on behalf of Dean Lay's Lifelong Learning Team. And in addition to thanking our moderator and presenter who did a fantastic job, I just wanted to thank our audience as well. We love having you here. And we wanted to remind you that our Signature Leadership Series takes place on Thursdays at noon Eastern, specifically the second Thursdays of each month. For more information, you can always visit our webpage, business.rutgers.edu/alumni/lifelong-learning. Anyone who has registered will receive that and didn't have to memorize what I just said. Next month, our webinar falls on Veterans Day, so we plan to have a presenter from the veteran community. We always have an exciting schedule of topics and presenters lined up for several months in advance, and many of those are thanks to wonderful suggestions from our audience. We appreciate that, so we encourage you to keep sharing your great ideas. We want this series to continue to meet your needs. Please stay online for a moment longer as today's webinar ends, and you'll immediately see a very brief survey. And by very brief, I mean like 2 questions. And one of those is a free form field to type in topics and/or speakers you'd like to see featured in our future webinars. And finally, as I mentioned when our webinar began earlier, a link to the archived version of this recording will be shared via social media and email to those who registered, and it will appear on the Business Insights page of our website. So Rich and Nick, thank you again so much, and our audience, we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Nick. Great getting to know you.
Same here, Rich. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. Appreciate it. Thank you all.